and America. It is episode, I think, 17. Yeah, 17 of Freedom Bros. I am Freedom Bro number 1, Dustin Hurst, joined by ISAA president and founder, Freedom Bro number 2, Greg Pruitt. Greg, my buddy. My buddy. How you doing?
Good. It's I'm all sorts of giddy and happy, and ain't no tears, buddy. I can tell you that right now.
Yeah. It's been a great week, stacking up those W's, and I mean, winning on the lid, so it's always a good thing. We have got a wonderful show for everybody tonight. There's a ton going on in Idaho politics,
That's crazy.
Ton.
Yeah.
And a ton going on in politics across the country, like Hunter Biden indicted today. Mitt Romney is retiring. Like, there is just a ton going on. So we're going to talk about a lot of stuff. So first, the New Mexico governor shocked the world by using public health as an excuse to grab guns. So we'll talk about that. The Boise Mayoral candidate was bullied into returning a donation from a conservative activist, and Butch Otter has fully transitioned away from his true self into his new self.
I thought, what does that mean exactly?
Yeah, I didn't know that you could transition at like 78 years old, but he's on some sort of blockers or something. I think he is fully transitioned. So before we do that, I made a point. I screwed this up last week. I'm going to get it right this week. We're going to play our awesome stinger. Welcome to episode 17 of Freedom Bros.
Every time, baby. Every time. You've redeemed yourself, Dustin.
Yeah,
you have redeemed yourself.
Finally. Okay, let's talk New Mexico governor, because when COVID was going on, we all saw the people who kept their heads about them, didn't shut down the parks, didn't take the basketball hoops down, didn't do all this. We said this power, what they're doing now, is going to be abused for other stuff in the future, because to the liberals, everything that they don't like is a public health emergency and a threat to people. Racism is a public health emergency. Gun violence, a public health emergency. Here's the one that's also coming now. Climate change is a public health emergency. Greg, you are the gun guy, so I want you to start with this. What happened in New Mexico?
Yeah, so I mean, Albuquerque has had a massive amount of violence, and obviously in the 2A community, we don't ever say gun violence because guns don't commit violence, right? People commit violence and use different tools to do it.
Weird.
But they call it the gun violence epidemic, and they've had a lot of violence. And of course, rather than, looking at the liberal policies of just letting everybody go, letting the criminals do whatever they want, rather than looking at those policies as maybe not a good idea, she was out of nowhere. I would say out of nowhere. She's probably been planning it for a long time. She is a George Soros-backed governor, right? I mean, he helped her win. And she came out of nowhere with this executive order saying, we are going to ban firearms in the city of Albuquerque and in the county of Bernalillo, or however the heck you say
whatever the county is.
It's kind of a weird name. Anyway, we're going to ban guns, open or concealed, by law-abiding citizens, because we all know the criminals don't care about her stupid executive order. And so she issues this executive order, and of course the whole Twitter melts down. They're like, this is exactly what we've been saying for a long time they're going to try and do. But it was rather gratifying to actually watch the police, like the sheriff and Albuquerque police chief, and all of them were like, yeah, we're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Either A, because they know it's unconstitutional, or B, because lawsuits would have came out the wazoo. And she didn't even believe her own executive order. She's like, oh yeah, I know it's going to get challenged. It's maybe not even constitutional. She just didn't care.
Yeah. So the interesting thing here, there were a couple of observations I had. Number one, their press corps actually did its job.
Yeah. Yeah.
Holy crap. Did you watch the actual press conference and what she said
Yes.
in the back and forth? There was one
Yeah.
reporter who said, so you're telling me, and this is what you were just alluding to, so you're telling me that criminals who have so far been ignoring the laws that say don't kill people are suddenly going to stop, they're going to turn in
Right.
their guns or stop carrying in Albuquerque? And she's like, yeah, no, but this sends a strong message.
Yeah. To the
I'm not sure.
criminals. Like,
I'm
hey,
not,
open season.
like what stronger message is there than don't kill or we will find you and lock you up and kill you? Like,
Right. Yeah. I mean, it was so bad of an executive order. You had people like David Hogg, right? One of the
okay,
most famous gun control activists that was like, yeah, this, you can't do this. And I'm like, wow.
here's the
Now,
thing.
I
What
think
do
he has
you,
some ulterior motives
yeah.
with his posting, but still, I read that and I went like, did hell freeze over? What is happening here? Because
So
even
yeah, it
this
was David
guy,
Hogg, and there was a super liberal congressman who basically said the exact same thing, which is,
right?
yeah, this is probably not constitutional at all. But like, look, I don't trust anything those people say
Correct.
at all. Like, they could tell me the sky is blue, and I would go outside and check. Like, what was that all about?
Yeah, I don't know what the motive is there. I mean, that is their end game. The only thing I could think honestly is that they know that the New Mexico governor's executive order is going to give our side a ton of ammo, right?
Right.
Now we're all going to use her as like, hey, this is what they really want to do. This is what Biden could do at any moment. There's a mass shooting, and Biden just says, you know what, we're going to ban guns in this country.
Yeah.
Completely uncut. So I think maybe that might have been part of why they were like, hey, well, don't tell them that. Don't say that part out loud yet. You know, we got to keep working towards banning the Second Amendment. So that's the only thing I can come up with on why they do that.
I think the other thing is David Hogg, that annoying little twerp. He's a twerp, right? Like that's
Yeah.
the word twerp was designed for somebody like him, right?
Yeah.
I think he was trying to he did understand the optics of this, and that is bad. His views are so extreme, like he really wants to ban lots and lots of guns. And I think he wanted to position himself as a reasonable voice for normal people
Correct.
in this. And so he quickly condemned it so that normies would say, oh, David Hogg, well, that one
He's not
time
that bad.
yeah,
Yeah.
that one time he said this. So, he actually is for constitutional, like he's trying to position himself as a constitutional
Yeah.
scholar almost.
Yeah.
I hope normal people don't fall for that because it's very obvious what he's doing. It's very, very obvious.
Yeah, I guess, but I mean, that dude literally tweets "F the NRA" all the time, and not that I don't necessarily disagree with that at times. Because the NRA compromises,
but for different reasons.
They compromise way too much. But you know what I mean. So I guess, yeah, I mean that's a possibility. He was trying to make himself sound. I mean, recently David Hogg's been at gun ranges and stuff, and shooting in order to basically learn what our side thinks and feels about firearms, and so he can debate about it, even though he's still a moron. But yeah, so I mean, overall, it was good to see. I don't know. Somebody asked me, is there a group in New Mexico like the ISAA that will go out and because I was like, oh man, if Brad Little did that, we would have a massive rally with every gun you could possibly imagine. Go ahead and try and arrest all of us.
You want to talk insurrection? Try that in Idaho. And by the way, for those who think that I'm saying something extreme, like that's literally how the government should work. The government works with the consent of the governed, and we don't give you consent to take away our gun rights. So yes, if there were a play like that, absolutely fill the Capitol. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You
So they
don't
did.
have our
They had
permission.
they had a good chunk of people that turned out for a rally, and a bunch of them were armed, and the police just sat there and didn't do anything. So like they should have not done.
Yeah, I was very, very proud of the reaction. I mean, the attorney general was like, "Yeah, well, I'm not going to defend this in court." That was amazing.
Yeah.
And I've been very critical of the Thin Blue Line folks and the Thin Blue Line apologists who just say that police are everything. And like, I was very worried that the police would go along with this, but they're like, "Yeah, no, not interested."
Yeah.
Oh man.
So I mean, to be honest, I mean, it's a really fascinating. She almost kind of, I don't know, did us a favor in a way just to go, okay, Like this is their end game. This is their goal. Now we kind of got a little piece of what in a blue state, right? This New Mexico is not a red state, so this is a blue state in a blue city, and her own police force, and like you said, the AG and everybody was like, "Whoa, wait, yeah, we ain't doing that." If you're trying to start a civil war, that would be it right there.
Yeah, and I think she really did overstep for a couple of reasons, but in the public debate arena, like she's getting crushed, and it's empowering to people like us who know how to take public opinion and rally in our favor. There are petitions all over the place saying, now don't use gun or don't use public safety to do gun orders. It's like, no, whoops. Now, like there are people raising. I mean, and you and I know how this works, and so does the left. Let's be clear about this. When somebody does something like this, you can raise tens of thousands of dollars off of this. And like she probably just raised millions for the NRA and for other gun groups across the country. Like that was really stupid. It's like when Glenn Beck talks about a book that he hates, then everybody goes out and buys it because they want to read it. Like I've done that. Like I've done that a few times, and then he makes the author rich. It's like no.
No, that's you're absolutely right. This is I think a really good opportunity for our side really to wake up and go, hey, but they've been pushing the CDC to do quote unquote gun violence studies, right? And like you said, tying this to COVID's an emergency. We got to shut everything down. We can't do this. And they've been talking about the gun violence epidemic for a really long time. And at some point, that's their hope, is that there's going to be some sort of shooting, and then they'll try to usurp the Constitution and take those rights away. And now they've got a little taste of, hey, if you try that, you can see the reaction. It's not good. That's a one step. That would be a red line for a lot of people.
And I will say, I am not surprised, but I am very thankful that there were no assassination attempts, because that I think, I don't know that she was going for that, but like that would have absolutely swayed public opinion and said, oh yeah, maybe this is something we need to do. So man, it could have gotten really ugly, and I'm glad that she got her hand slapped. And I will say this, I did argue about this on Twitter with everybody all the time, because that's what I do all day, every day. I'm really bothered, Greg, by the fact, and I understand that the Constitution is up to interpretation, and everybody gets to act constitutionally as they see fit. But when you and I break a law, when you speed, when you litter, when you steal, you pay a fine. There is a penalty for breaking even victimless crimes.
Sure.
It is really bothersome to me that when a politician, using her judgment that's actually very poor, tries to usurp the rights of hundreds of thousands of people, there's literally no penalty other than we're going to overturn your order, and that's it. And even if you could penalize her in her official capacity, it's not the governor who ends up paying any sort of penalty. It's taxpayers, right? Because either they have to take it from the general fund, or there's insurance for stuff like this. Man, I wish we could penalize politicians who knowingly violate the rights of others.
I don't know how we're not in treason territory. I mean, seriously, that's you could tell she even knew that it was a terrible idea. She was like, yeah, I can't really do this, but I'm gonna do it anyway.
Yeah.
So that there's no, I did this executive order and it kind of got misinterpreted, and then rights got taken away, and maybe that was intentional, maybe it wasn't, right? There's no gray area. She pretty much admitted, I really can't do this, but I'm going to do it anyway because something has to be done, right? That's what they always say, is something's got to be done. And so, and Idahoans have asked, so we do have some laws. I don't have the code off the top of my head. I've been packing for our tour, but Idaho does have protections, in particular against the governor issuing this type of order during an emergency, right? So the governor cannot suspend your right to keep and bear arms during any kind of emergency here in the state of Idaho. Now, does that mean I don't ever see Little doing that, because that would end really badly.
There's political suicide, right?
There's, you don't ever touch the guns in Idaho. So, but yeah,
no, I am grateful. Like that's one thing. There are a lot of things that I wish Idaho would improve, like lots. Like our tax policy is really bad. We're a welfare state.
Yeah.
Our education system is garbage, and not because we don't spend enough money on it.
Right.
But and this is largely thanks to your work, but the work of lawmakers and the activists who get involved. Like we are really good on guns. We are really good on guns, and I have friends across the country who do similar work to mine, and they're it's so foreign to them that like you can take a gun in the Capitol.
Right.
Lawmakers are carrying on the floor, like.
Yeah.
And people say, "Oh, it's gun culture. It's unsafe." It's like, no, it's. I want to protect my kids. It's
right.
It's actually about safety. So
no. I mean, when we started ISA, we were ranked 32nd in the guns and ammo ranking, and we've now got up to, you could argue, second, first, third. Wyoming, Arizona, and Idaho all have really, really good gun laws, and you could probably interchange them depending on how you did the rankings. But
I think that I almost want this goes against everything I believe, but I really wish we had like a constitutional amendment that said to be an Idahoan, you have to own a gun. But and here's why that would work. Number one, because I actually believe in gun ownership. But number two, the crunchy vegan man bun liberals who think that guns are terrifying would leave. Like more of them would leave. I absolutely support implementing policies that make liberals want to leave. So
and honestly, that's where all of our elected officials should be focusing on, because that's what they're doing in the other states, right? That's what they do in Oregon on the left coast, is what I call it. And on the left, they just keep passing bills, and that's why we have all these political refugees. Well, we can do the same thing here if we had lawmakers with the spine to do it. Just keep passing so many laws that the liberals are like, we're out of here. These people are crazy.
Well,
thank you.
I don't know if you saw this, and this we're going to shift subjects, and this is not something we plan to talk about, but California, I wish I could blow up the border of California and just, sorry about that, shove it into the Pacific Ocean. Just go be your own damn country, right?
Yeah, right.
And I don't care that it's like got this massive GDP. Like I don't worship money. I worship what's right, right?
Right.
So the state of California just passed a bill that said if you don't affirm your kid's gender identity, you are basically guilty of child abuse. Now, right now, what that means, and I was reading a little bit about it. What that means is if there are custody disputes, this is where it's going to come into play.
Correct.
If you are the parent who affirms the child's identity, you get preference in custody hearings. Like, so what I texted Brian Lenny and Tammy Nichols and Scott Herndon. I said, guys, learn from this.
Right.
You need to now pass the opposite law. And I think Seth Dillon from the Babylon Bee was talking about this too.
Yeah.
You need to tip the scales in favor of parents who will not affirm their kid's gender identity, because it's insane. And give them the upper hand here in Idaho, because if you don't, eventually the courts will rule the other way, and eventually we will slide down and be just like California.
Correct.
So, yes.
Yeah, no, and that's exactly right. But as you know, what happens when you ever try to be proactive at the Capitol with your bills? Well, that's not happening here.
Yes.
Why are we worried about that? This is Idaho, blah, blah. I mean, these people are idiots.
Yes.
It's all right. There's not another way to, they don't understand the fight. Okay. They're not idiots in that they're dumb people. They're dumb in that they,
some of them, let's be clear about this.
Yeah. Some of them couldn't do crayons and draw and stuff. So
there are at least three that I worry about. Yeah.
Right. But no, seriously, they don't understand this fight. And this has been, you and I have been talking for this like for a decade now. These guys don't understand the fight. They think that they can compromise on this stuff. They think they can go along to get along with the left. And it's disgusting. Like, they're going to screw our state if we don't turn it around and start passing laws like you're just talking about.
Yeah.
That's proactive in defending, real education and gun rights and babies and anti-trans stuff, all that.
Oh yeah,
all of it. So.
Yeah, it shocks me, and I think Florida did this with the whole "don't say gay" nonsense, which is not at all what the bill says.
Right.
But Idaho should have a bill or law that says public school teachers cannot bring up gender identity in classrooms, because I received this year when school started, I received texts from people who thought I was still with IFF, and they said, "Hey, my second grader, his teacher just went over their pronouns," and it wasn't like an honest like, "Hey, let's learn pronouns." It was, "Tell me your pronouns so that we can talk about gender identity." It was opening the door to the discussion of, are you really a boy? Are you a girl?
Gosh.
I am more than pissed that we don't have that law, because quite frankly, and this isn't about muzzling anyone's speech. No speech. This is, you are an employee of a school district that is funded by taxpayers. You have to do what we say, or at least you have to stop with your BS, because these are our schools, not yours.
Yeah.
So,
well, the crazy thing is, if you talk to pretty much any people in other countries, they think we're nuts. Right. They think we are absolutely crazy with this gender crap. I mean, you've seen What is a Woman, right?
yes.
By Matt Walsh.
Yes.
Yeah, he's over in Africa, and they're like, "What the hell are you talking about, dude?" Like, we don't do this stuff here. And most countries are like that. Almost all of them, except for us, are on this totally insane, crazy path now, because we used to treat gender dysphoria as an actual mental disorder, which it is.
Yes.
And now we're just like, affirm it all. We don't care anymore. It's totally fine. And this has been an issue that thankfully I think has woken a lot of people up, even though I think there are a lot more issues out there that, I want to say are more important, because it's when they get to the kids, now we're in very important territory, right?
Yeah.
But I think finally people are starting to wake up to what's happening, and the transgenders, they went too far, right? The LGBTQ, whatever it is. Now you got the lesbians and the gays and the bisexuals who are like, get these transgender people away from us. Like, we don't want anything to do with them. They're freaking crazy.
There was I'll have to look it up. Maybe we'll talk about this next week, or because this is not an issue that's going away. There was a case out in Virginia, and it's always Virginia where this stuff like
is right.
Like Florida man, like you've got people like on meth doing weird stuff. Like Florida man is a thing, but like transgender kid might be a thing in Virginia, because like there was a case of a teenage girl who identified as a boy, and she got sexually assaulted in a bathroom by a bunch of boys or whatever, and the parents wouldn't affirm her gender, so CPS got involved, took her away. She got put in a home. She got sexually assaulted there, and they still wouldn't give her back to her parents because they wouldn't affirm her nonsensical gender ideas. Like the what's coming. I'll say this: if we aren't proactive, what's coming is beyond hell. Like beyond hell. There's going to be, because schools, by the way, schools in Idaho are already working to transition kids, or at least being accepting of transitioning kids without their parents' knowledge. When did it become okay for government agents to change kids' beliefs about who their basic fundamental beliefs about who they are without telling us? Because that's what's happening.
Yeah. Well, and you bring up CPS from that case, and that's where I'm glad people like Scott Herndon and Senator Herndon and a few others are really trying to rein in CPS. Because here's the thing: the average person, when they think of CPS, is some deadbeat piece of trash dad is beating the tar out of his kid every day, right? And the kid's going to school with bruises on his face, or their malnutrition because their parents are locking them in. I mean, there's some crazy freaking parents out there, right? Who are doing horribly abusive things to their kids. And that's in the minds of most Idahoans. Yeah. That's what CPS is going out to stop every day. But then you run into stuff like with Diego's kid, and you end up with, CPS showing up at your door because you won't transition your kid and stuff. And that's where that stuff's got to be reined in. Right? They've got to stop that before it starts happening here. And people get their kids taken away because they won't pretend that they're the wrong gender.
Well, and it's an interesting study, because a couple years ago, I want to say about 10 years ago, Melissa Harris Perry, the lady, the MSNBC, she had the tampons from the ears. Yeah. She released an ad for MSNBC where she basically was kind of
it's probably Rod Furness's favorite host.
Oh no. Oh no.
I went there. What's up?
That's bad. You're not wrong though. Pee, poop, and period. Whatever. Whatever, Rod. Red flag,
Gosh.
Rod.
Yeah.
But basically, she kind of like was like, yeah, our kid, they're our kids. And then there've been just like every once in a while, you hear this thing of like, yeah, the state is raising your kids, or these are our kids, they're the state's kids. You have no right to
Right.
them. And like then Republicans react. They're like, this is BS. And then we're being accused. We're accused of pouncing and creating a what's the term? Disinformation campaign. It's like, no,
Yeah.
we're telling you where this is going. You just want to lie about it so you can do it. Like,
Right.
it's
Yeah.
like we've been right about almost everything. COVID health orders being abused, the state wanting our kids, the transit. Like, we knew where this was headed. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
anyway.
Yeah. Same with the second. I know we'll need to transition, no pun intended here, to Butch Otter here in a minute. But I know they've ruined the word, right? They take these words that are normal words, and then you can't say them anymore because you're like, no, never mind. But that's the same thing with guns, right? We kept telling people their end goal is to ban the Second Amendment, and there's groups in Colorado now asking their governor, just get rid of all guns, just get rid of all of them. I mean, that is their end game. They're slowly coming out finally and saying it, and they do that on all, like you said, every issue. This is the end game. This is what they're trying. Oh, you got right-wing conspiracies and far-right extremists and fear-mongering, and then all of a sudden we're like, see, like it's happening. And so
it's read a damn history book. It's not that
right.
hard, guys. Like, we know, and I'm not a huge historian, but it's like, you know, like if black people would have been armed, do you think they would have been slaves?
Yeah. No.
So goodness gracious, there's so much wrong. Okay, let's talk about our next transition. And it's look. So for those who aren't plugged in and don't live and breathe this stuff, I wish we didn't, but we have to. A couple weeks ago, I started tweeting about this Vote Vets group or whatever that pretended to be. It's a political mouthpiece, and they're pretending they're not.
Yeah.
And I tweeted, I was like, guys, this is a bad group because they're trying to pretend like they're a group of like grassroots group of veterans who say, oh, we need change in Idaho. But that's not what it is. This group was cooked up in probably in Luke Mayville's, green meth machine. And that's terrible. In his traveling meth machine, saying, oh, we need to gin up support for this. Let's do a poll. Let's do a poll on where people think they need to, or where people are vulnerable in their messaging. And we'll explain that in a minute. And then they formed a phony veterans group, political group. I've seen this in Montana. I worked in Montana for a bit. And it's a textbook play by the left. They make these phony groups. In fact, there was an election a couple years ago where the League of Conservation Voters, they made a phony Second Amendment group to get their moderate Republicans and Democrats elected. It didn't work, but that's what they do. So that's what's going on here. That's the backdrop of this. Yesterday, it was yesterday. Governor Butch Otter has transitioned from it's been a very long transition. I know transitions can take a lot of time for the puberty blockers to take effect or whatever. This is the Liberty blockers. He's on Liberty blockers, right?
Right. Yeah.
So Governor Butch Otter was the only one of two congressmen to vote against the Patriot Act. He was one.
That's crazy, man.
Then in 2006, he voted for Medicare Part D, and then his entire time as governor, he was a big government rhino. Government grew and grew and grew. Now he has sealed the deal by endorsing rigged choice voting in the open primaries. Now, what he's saying is that, it's disenfranchising veterans and they can't vote.
Yeah. What?
They can't vote. Okay. I have my thoughts, and I'm going to burn on this, Greg, because I've been thinking about this for 24 hours. I'm going to burn, but I want to know, what do you think he's doing?
Well, so here was my first thought on the whole rigged choice voting when he came out in favor of it. Look, if you followed Butch Otter through his gubernatorial years, at the very end, and I don't mean this in a hurtful way, but there was a lot of concern that he was in the early stages of possible dementia, right?
Yes.
Like cognitively, he had declined. He had gone into the Joe Biden stages of life, and so I'm not sure if he's the one really pushing it versus somebody behind him. I don't know if Lori Otter is pushing it or somebody else is just like, hey, Governor Otter, do this thing. This is fantastic. But the funny thing is, we've talked about this a lot of times. These phony groups keep popping up. They're always led by liberals, right? Every single time it's some liberal behind it. And we didn't know last time, Dustin, when you and I were talking about this, I had no idea who started this group. I had no clue who was
Yeah.
behind it until yesterday. And they're like, Scott Syme. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Of course it's Scott Syme, who is a veteran, and I appreciate his service. But shocker that it was one of the biggest liberals in the Idaho House that there ever was. So, and then you have Marv Hagedorn on there too. A lot of people probably don't know who Marv Hagedorn is, and I've had good interactions with him.
And thank goodness for that.
So I didn't have any personal beef with Marv Hagedorn, but he was another very, very liberal Republican. So no surprise that those two are behind it.
So I'm here's what's happening. The Republican Party, thanks in large part, and the state as a whole, by the way, is getting more conservative day by day by day. And people don't misconstrue what I'm about to say. Californians who move into city limits in Boise are full-on communists. Full on. There are a few exceptions, like Ryan Spoon is an exception right there. If they're Californian and they move outside of Boise, they're very conservative, they're engaged, they're active. They are making the state redder and redder and redder.
Yeah.
Butch Otter and his cronies are losing their grip on the state, and they are doing everything that they can, including palling around with socialists to save their power. It's not about saving the state. That's not what it's about.
Yeah.
And how do you know that? How do I know that? Scott Syme is a big losing loser, right? Scott Syme lost his last election because he wasn't conservative enough. He's a loser.
Yeah.
But he wants to be a winner. He wants to be in power. He wants to have the crony deals. He wants people to come beg for legislation at his feet. That's what's going on. And to pretend otherwise, look, I appreciate, as just like you said, I don't want anyone to misconstrue this. I appreciate their service to America. But there are lots of veterans on the other side of this. I don't know, Greg Pruitt, you're a veteran, right?
Yeah.
Ryan Spoon, you're a veteran. I can think of, I actually, I don't know where Ben Adams is on this. Like, you would think he'd be with us, but you never know with Ben Adams. But this is a phony political movement, and it's. I'm sorry. I'm just going to go off for just 1 second.
Yeah.
Two initiatives ago, Reclaim Idaho endorsed Medicaid expansion, or brought Medicaid expansion. Butch Otter endorsed it.
Yeah.
The Republican governor of the state endorsed a socialist Medicaid expansion plan. Last time, Brad Little stole the ideas from the socialist education money dump plan. And now the Republican governor, the former Republican governor, is back, Butch Otter, endorsing Reclaim. And people wonder why conservatives are up in arms about the establishment. It's because they have no principles. None, zero, nada.
Well, and I don't know if they don't realize this or they don't believe it, but once, let's say that this is all successful, right? And they open up the primary and we've got this stupid rigged choice voting. The problem is what the establishment doesn't know or doesn't care about is once all of us are gone, okay, let's assume they get rid of all the conservatives. Guess who's next, right? You're next, Scott Syme, Butch Otter, all of you, you're gone because the liberals, they're full on pro-abortion, pro-chopping little kids' private parts off. You think they're going to stop?
Nice censoring there. Nice censoring there. I know where you were going with it.
I was, yeah. So, you're next. Again, remember, Mitt Romney was far right when he was taking on Barack Obama, right? He was far right. He was a horrible human being. Now they all love him because he attacked Trump, right?
Yep.
But like, that's what's going to happen if this works, is because they know that opening up the primaries wasn't enough, right? They were like, crap, we need to do something different. We need to get this rigged choice voting in here because that's really the best chance we have to confuse the hell out of voters and start picking up a whole bunch of liberals unknowingly into these races.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And you're right, because they are not, yeah, they're not going to stop. They want every state. They want to. I mean, and this is the game we play. This is the political game. You know,
Yeah.
I want a full takeover of conservatives, and I think we're almost there. I really do. Stopping this is key to that. But they want a full and complete takeover. They want. I can't. They want Lauren McLean as
Right.
governor. They
Right.
want.
Yeah.
They want. You know, freaking. Oh, they want Lisa Sanchez to be like the superintendent of public instruction or something
Oh
like
my
that.
gosh.
Actually, she
Don't
would
even
probably be
say
over
that.
DHW because it hands out all the welfare, right?
Oh
They
man.
want. You know, they want Steve Birch over, you know, commerce so they can just run this state, and then Republicans will lose forever. And I hope they see that. I really do. The other thing is interesting here is obviously it was implemented in Alaska, and everyone's like, well, they still you know, have a Republican governor or Republican legislature, Republican this, Republican that.
Sure.
There was the one race, the congressional race. Craig, do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah. Well, and I mean, that's just like saying look at all the Republicans that are in the Capitol. Okay.
Yeah.
Like, that doesn't mean anything.
Scott,
But yeah, no,
bell, guys.
the Sarah Palin race in particular was really interesting because I'll be honest, like prior to her running for Congress, I wasn't really paying attention to ranked choice voting because it wasn't something that had popped up here yet.
Yep.
And that I honestly didn't think that the liberals would go for it. I thought they would just try to open the primary. And then Sarah Palin lost, and was like, how in the world did that happen? And I'm not saying that she was super popular, but she's well known, and you know, name recognition tends to carry the day in those types of races, even if that person, you know, wasn't popular or whatever. And out of the three candidates, one was a Democrat and two were Republicans, Sarah Palin, and I can't remember the name of the other individual. And between the two Republicans, they ended up with 60% of the vote. The Democrat ended up with 40% of the vote. But by the time the rigged choice voting retabulated everything and they finally ended up with a winner, the Democrat ended up winning.
Yep.
Even though 60% of the people were like, we want a Republican.
Wait a second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's what they want, right? I mean, look, there's three Republicans and one Democrat. And it really depends on how it's set up. And, you know, some states you have to put leaning Republican, leans Democrat, you know, or affiliates Republican. Okay, well, that's not a big deal. All they're going to do is put affiliates Republican like they do now. And it's going to be a lot easier for them to win.
Yeah. And for those of you, like, I'm going to admit, I haven't done the full deep dive reading all the material on ranked choice voting and what it does, how it affects stuff. I will admit that. I'm going to. And you know why, Greg. You know why I'm going to.
I do.
And you are too, by the way. Hashtag stay tuned. But here's what I know. In politics, you know people by the fruits of their labors, what they do and who they are, who they associate with. All of the worst people in Idaho politics, all of the worst ones, except for my brother, are supporting rigged choice voting.
Yes.
Luke Mayville is supporting rigged choice voting. Marv Hagedorn, liberal as hell, Republican senator, former senator. Scott Syme, one of the pettiest bastards I've ever seen on the floor. Because do you remember, like, I don't know if you remember this, he would go in on floor votes, he would change his vote to go opposite Tammy Nichols just because. Like, it was a thing that happened all the time. There are all these left wing, because they know it either helps Democrats or helps the establishment keep their power.
Yeah.
I look, I don't like playing the guilt by association game because, you know, we should review the ideas on their merits. The merits are bad. I understand that just from the early returns, but, you know, I don't hang out with people who, you know, drive Chevys, for example, because I don't like Chevys. Like, I don't. It matters.
That's good. Like, I have a Dodge, so we're good.
You know, and I think the other thing is the open primaries. A lot of people are annoyed because they can't vote in the Republican primary. Our mutual friend Zach Brooks had a really interesting tweet about this. Like, people think that primary elections are for all voters. They're not. They're not. Mm-mm. You have two teams, and at the end of this process, the two teams put their people, their representatives, in front of the voters for a final disposition. You don't let the blue team pick the red team's captain to be up for that vote. That doesn't work. He explained it way better than I did. But
yeah, I saw what you were talking about. Well, so let me ask you. The funny thing is when I've brought this up to people, and maybe people that are more in the middle or more liberal, and I say, look, the primary election is not an election. Okay, it's not. You're not electing
yes,
a representative. You're
yep,
electing a person to go run for representative in November. And I'm like, these are private organizations who should have the right. Well, then the state should stop paying for it. Okay,
okay,
sure. Yeah, I think that's a great
yeah,
idea. I think the state should stop paying for it.
yeah.
They should absolutely run their own system. Guess
Yes,
what? Guess what? Then we get a caucus. Guess what? Then you're going to get more conservative.
yeah,
So
yeah.
let's do it. Let's roll.
I am all here for that. I wish, but here's the thing: I just wish that civics education was up to par in this country, because then people would actually understand this stuff. It is.
Yeah.
This is not like. And here's the thing: a lot of people give me crap because I'm a libertarian, registered, full-blooded libertarian, because I don't support any party that has Brad Little at its head. And I know Dorothy is the head of the party, but traditionally the highest ranking Republican in the state is also regarded as a leader of the party. I cannot be associated with Brad Little in any way, shape, or form. None, zero, none.
Yeah.
I can't participate in that because I am taking a principled stand. And I know that I'm a libertarian. I have different values than a lot of Republicans, and that's okay. I'm not trying to crash their party. It's like if I were like, I'm Mormon, right? Like, I don't go to Jewish services and say I want to say in how things run here. That doesn't work.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is their other counter argument is, well, the primary is basically the election. I'm like, then move to another state. Like, seriously, I don't go to California and demand that somehow the slim number of Republicans in comparison to how big the state is should have all of the say in how California politics work. Sorry, the winners determine the rules, right? Them's the rules.
Well, exactly. And
so.
and this comes into ranked choice voting too. And I got into this on Twitter or X, whatever the hell we call it these days, with somebody. It's like, look, if you the reason you want this is your ideas suck. Like, they are very bad. Letting kids cut off their privates, letting them identify whatever they want, illegal immigration. Your ideas are awful. Just terrible. Have better ideas. Don't rig the game. Like, you saw after Roe v. Wade, Republicans have been really excellent at not packing the Supreme Court, but changing the makeup of the Supreme Court. Mitch McConnell, for all the crap he's done, holding that one seat open for a couple months was incredible.
Correct.
Incredible. Republicans just outplayed Democrats on that. But then after Roe v. Wade was dropped, Democrats were like, well, we need to fix the court. We need to fix the court. No, you need to play better. And that's the thing here. Like, your ideas are bad. Play better. Have better ideas. Sell them better. And you won't need to rig the game. Stop it. Stop rigging the game.
Yeah. Well, or move. Like, seriously, that's why we have 50 states. That's why people are flooding here, is because they don't like your crappy ideas. Guess what? There are a lot of states. Over half the country, over half the states have ideas that you like.
Yes.
So you're allowed to move, but you don't get to rig the game and try to change the rules in order to implement your ideas through the back door. Like, we're not going to let that happen.
I generally do not support welfare programs. I really don't. But a lot of times when you have Republicans sell welfare programs, they say, well, this incentive, we'll spend a little bit now to get a lot of savings later.
Yeah.
I would love to establish a move the hell out of Idaho fund for that very reason. Not only because I don't want to be around liberals, but also because if you move liberals out of your state, there are tons of them on welfare who need, who want all the programs, all the benefits. Like, let's move you out of the state and we will have tons of savings later.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we'll subsidize U-Haul. And then just free moving to whichever left coast state you want to go to, and we'll help you pack. We'll send a moving company over, right? The Freedom Bros moving company. Me and Dustin will help you pack. And
literally,
get your ass out of
like,
our state.
we're both big dudes. We will help you pack your U-Haul. And here's the thing: you're joking about this, Greg. Like, if you're a liberal who wants to move to another state, I'm 100% serious. I will help you pack your U-Haul to get the hell out of here.
Yeah. If my back wasn't all messed up from Iraq, I'm probably a little more thanks to the church, making me the moving guy for the last
Oh
freaking
yeah,
20 years. I got
that's
screwed, but
yeah.
yes,
No, dude,
absolutely.
I
Let's do it.
understand that. Like that's the most Mormon thing about me is I help people move all the time. It's like, oh my gosh. I have a
Right.
pickup truck and I'm 6'4", 320. Like it's
Yeah.
not a good combination. Oh man.
Oh
But
gosh.
yeah,
Yeah.
no,
Well, we
great
got
choice
again
voting.
more to come. More
Oh
to
yeah.
come, baby.
There's
Yeah.
a lot more to come. And the interesting thing is like I didn't understand that people are already plugged into this issue. They are
Yeah.
they are very plugged in. I don't know if it's the Republican Party doing the messaging that works well or Fox News or whatever, but people are already fired up about this. I I understand that a lot of out of state money is going to flow in. I mean, the Soros people, they want this stuff. Like this is going to be a fight and it's going to be an
That's gonna be
uphill fight for
crazy.
them because
Yeah.
if you look at the numbers, thanks to Donald Trump, there's that confidence in elections is at an all time low, especially among Republicans. You're going to sell a more complicated voting system in ruby red Idaho that's going to vote for Trump
Yeah.
overwhelmingly?
Yeah.
Come on, Luke.
I don't think the piece is out yet, but I did an interview recently and I brought that up with the reporter. I said, look, people are already very leery of how the whole election process. They kind of think maybe here in Idaho it's secure. And now you're going to bring in one of the most complicated systems in the world. I mean, look, Gavin Newsom in California, they hate it. Alaska is actually trying to repeal it right now. Across the board, a lot of people really hate the system because it's so complicated. And so
Wait
you're
a second.
right. Like people are going to hate it. One election cycle, and they'd be like, "What the freak is this? Like, what are we
Wait a second.
doing?"
Wait a second. I actually didn't know that about California. An idea so bad that even California won't adopt it.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
It's
funny because you have this messaging war going on all over the place on social and stuff where you have these native Idahoans who are these liberal Republicans that are like, oh, these Californians are coming in and they're ruining my state. It's like, wait a second, you're trying to import a California idea here so you can keep your power. Who's Californicating Idaho, guys?
right. Yeah, yeah,
Oh
yeah.
goodness gracious.
Oh boy. All right.
Yeah, stay
Well, do
tuned.
we do we do
Lots more to
we
come on that.
transition to Masterson now?
Oh, we're gonna get so much crap for this one. Okay,
Oh,
so
all right.
Boise Pride Fest was last weekend. Last weekend. It's
Yeah.
where they bring out the dildos and the sex toys and parade them all across Boise downtown, right? And here's the thing. Here's the thing. Like again, I'm very libertarian on this stuff. Like I don't think that's great, but I also understand that adults can do what adults do.
Yeah.
Cool. Whatever. Don't care. Last year we helped shut down the youth drag show. That was really fun because you
Yeah.
shouldn't be having youth at a drag show.
Yeah.
Sorry, you should,
And
and
take him to
you
the
sure as
strip
hell should.
club. So.
Yeah, you sure as hell shouldn't have kids in a drag show. I don't
Oh my
care
gosh.
if that's their gender identity or expression. I don't care. I mean, I'm sure
Yeah.
a 14-year-old Dustin would have identified as a guy interested in a strip club or whatever. Not a good idea. Like we put limits on these things
Dude, so
for a
hey,
reason.
sorry, I don't want to cut you off, but this before I
Please do.
forget. So my brother owns a bar in Pocatello, and I was coming back from a Soda Springs rally, and I had one of my kids with me who was 13, and it sucked because guess what? I had to take my kid all the way to my brother's house and then drive all the way back to the bar because I can't take my kid in the bar that my brother owns. My kid, I don't drink beer. My kid doesn't drink beer.
Right.
He is not. If he steps in there, bad things are going to happen. So I
Yeah.
can't take my kid into a bar to go say hi to his uncle.
Yep.
But yeah, you want to flash your stuff around at a bunch of little kids. That's totally fine. Like it's freaking insane, dude.
Oh yeah.
I can't even.
There's somebody on Twitter. I don't know if it's a group or some troll who has dedicated himself to this or herself to this, but they're doing ads like that where it's saying basically like my kid identifies as a smoker, so I just let him smoke, and then they say you'd rather have your kid smoke than die, right? Which is the argument they
Right.
use, which is
Yeah.
you either have to accept their gender identity or they will kill themselves.
Correct.
So
Yeah, I don't remember. So I saw those ads too, and I can't remember who
oh man,
made
they're
them.
brilliant messaging, really
Yeah,
brilliant
that
messaging.
one in particular I really liked.
The other thing that works really well on this, and just to get away from this for a second, but you actually show people what these surgeries looks like these surgeries look
Dude,
like is
yeah.
horrifying.
I wish I could unsee it because you just see him on Twitter randomly from like libs of TikTok and
The
stuff.
forearm thing.
Yeah,
I'm
dude,
not even going
no,
to go into it.
I don't even want to think about it. It's
butchering
so
human
horrible.
beings.
It's so horrible.
And all for what? It's not to help these kids not kill themselves. It's for
No.
profit. It's for
Yeah.
profit and because it's trendy. I can't believe I said those words. We're letting kids take apart their forearms to make other parts of their bodies that will never work. There's one interview I saw with this brain dead leftist woman where the interviewer was like, "Hey, if you put kids on puberty blockers like little boys, they will never orgasm, never." And she was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh my gosh.
Do you understand what you're saying?
Yeah.
They don't care. They don't care. So okay.
Anyway.
So let's walk back to the original. So there was somebody decided to fly a banner over Filth Fest, and it said, "The rainbow is God's, not yours," which it is, right?
Yeah,
it goes back to Noah and all that stuff in the Bible, right?
Yeah.
Ryan Spoon, who is a friend of mine, and I think yours, I think you've talked to him a few times, he retweeted it and said, "This is flying over Filth Fest." Okay, Ryan is very outspoken about his traditional values and his views there. So he donated, I don't know when he donated, but he donated $100 to Mike Masterson.
Yeah.
A liberal activist pointed that out on Twitter, and you know what happened next.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Now, not only did Mike Masterson, so the Statesman wrote about it, Boise Deb, they wrote about it.
For everybody, of course.
Yeah, they all wrote about it, and Boise Deb did a pretty fair job. But I like Ron and his team. But and they all piled on. Mike Masterson returned the $100 donation. This is keep in mind. This is probably 3 days after the mayor's office put out a video saying Boise is a welcoming city for all.
Yeah, for all liberals. They forgot a word.
They really did. So a lot of people have given me a lot of crap about this because I said it was retweeted by Margaret Carmel of Boise Deb. I said Mike Masterson has lost my vote.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. A lot of Trent Clark went in on me. He's like, "Well, that means you support McLean." No, it doesn't. I'm not going to vote for McLean, Trent. That's your girl. Have fun.
Yeah.
But look, if you are going to be bullied by the Idaho Statesman and by some activists on Twitter, you're not even going to be center of the road mayor. You're going to be somebody who can be bullied into left-wing policies by the media and by activists. I don't want you as mayor because you're going to end up in the same place that Lauren McLean is. What's the point?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you end up with Masterson, who ends up caving to the liberals all the time, and all the Republicans in Boise go back to sleep. They're like, "Hey, we got our guy in. Now we don't have to worry about anything," right? Where McLean's in there, and at least you got people who are pissed and trying to fight against her. But yeah, he called it a filth fest. I've never been down there. Other than
it's bad.
Yeah, so I had to go to the hospital because my brother was dying of cancer, and it happened to be at a time when I think they were still kind of doing it in the summertime, right? And now they've shifted their whole thing to the fall.
Yeah.
But it was when it was still in the summertime, and back then it was probably less filthy than it is now. But there's sex toys and sex candy, and there's just people dressed all. I mean, it's not like. And that's where I think they've lost everybody now, right? It's not, hey, I'm wearing jeans and a t-shirt like you're going to see at the gun rallies or whatever. People, just normal people going out and hanging out. It's no, we've got to be total debauchery, right? Just sex. It's all about sex and drag shows, and we're going to bring little kids. I mean, it is a filth fest. It's like,
it really is.
There's no other way to describe
it's Sodom and Gomorrah times 10.
And that's in Idaho. I can't even imagine what it's like in California and other states.
It's bad, dude.
Yeah,
I try not to look at libs of TikTok when they share that stuff because it's yikes. I think I need to go talk to my bishop now. But oh my gosh, it's bad. It is really bad.
So he caves and that's he's trying to, again, it's appeasement, right? Either appeasement or he's a lot more liberal than people think he is.
Well, and keep in mind, I didn't know this. Somebody brought it up in a group discussion today, but Mike Masterson was actually a huge proponent of add the words. Add the words. Mike Masterson. And I didn't know that. Remember this? Remember Nicole Lefebvre? Oh, shit. Excuse me. I just said the S word. Oh, crap. I just dead named Nicole Lefebvre, who now goes, I think he goes by Cole Lefebvre. I'll probably get an angry letter about that later. But that was at the words is basically saying you can't fire people for their gender identity and sexual orientation. Like Mike Masterson was for that. So tell me that he's Republican, conservative in any way, shape, or form. How is he different from McLean?
Yeah. How? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, he's actually, if I read it correctly, and don't quote me on this, but I think he's actually participated in Pride before Mike Masterson. So sorry guys, you don't get my vote. You don't get my vote.
Well, okay. I'll be honest. I mean, I just like every other state that's had their big metro area fall to the liberals. I said when McLean won, I think I actually wrote an op-ed about it. Whenever she first won, I can't remember when that was. I said Boise's done. Like, sorry, you're not flipping it. All the good people, for the most part, right? All the good hardcore conservatives are gone. Everybody's moving out except for maybe you. And then, oh no, I doxed Dustin. Oh no, I just doxed.
Oh, don't share my address. I live in Boise.
Don't sue me, bro. But that's, and all the liberals, that's where they move. They move to the big metropolitan areas. That's just how this has always gone in every state. And so, maybe somebody can beat McLean at some point, but it's going to be another left-wing extremist that ends up beating her. So
yeah, look, there are a lot of Republican donors here in the city of Boise who love this city and who want to see it flip back. But guys, look at the history. Lauren McLean didn't win because she fooled people and people just hated Dave Beater. This is a blue city.
Yeah, very blue.
And the idea that it has, like Brent Cole's 2000, what was it? 2001, 2002. That was 20 years ago, guys.
Yeah,
20 years ago. It's not coming back. Now, instead of spending money on this race and, okay, maybe having one person on city council is cool. Lucy Willits isn't that much of a conservative anyway, but she can at least leak stuff to activists. But it's not coming back. Contain is the name of the game now. Contain, work. Remember, the Meridian City Council last year signed a proclamation in support of Pride Weekend when it still had the youth drag show. Correct. My boy Treg Burnt signed that proclamation. You've got to start working on Meridian now in a sensible way. Mike Hahn, not the right choice here. I like Mike. I don't think he's the right choice to win. You've got to win that race, or you've got to start winning seats on that council, or else you're going to lose. You're going to lose Meridian too. And then it's just going to keep creeping down the valley.
Yeah, and I mean, the only reason that Lucy, right, is that her first name, Lucy?
Yeah, Lucy Willits.
Is on the city council is because they've got districts, right? So the mayor's seat is not going to flip simply because you got that one Republican on there. Now, Ada County right now is still Republican, right? We still have the ability in Ada County because there are cities outside of Boise who are part of that. But again, just like has happened in Seattle and Portland, those cities get taken over, and little by little, it just spreads. It's like a freaking disease. It just spreads outward and outward. And eventually people are like, I'm going to go live in Emmett. I can't live in Meridian anymore because it's too blue, right? And like you said, that's already happening. The quote unquote Republicans on the city council and everything are turning. And so that just spreads outward and outward. And eventually we're all living out in the counties.
Well, and here's the thing. And here's where you and I have worked on different projects. We work to elect Republicans, right? Conservative Republicans, not the Marv Hagedorn type of Republicans.
Yeah.
Because we know we need to have a spine about this, right? The city or the state has tremendous power to say what cities and counties and school districts, local units of governments can and can't do.
Yeah.
But they don't use it because they don't have spines. They'll have local officials say, well, you guys believe in local control until you don't. Yeah, you're right. because the most local control is human beings, the individual, right? And like, for example, it can be used though. A couple years ago, about a decade ago, Boise started ticketing Uber drivers because it wasn't regulated by the city of Boise, and they wanted to protect their taxi cartel, right?
Yeah.
So they started, and then the state stepped in and said, "No, you're not going to do that. We're going to regulate that." And it's not really regulated, which it shouldn't be because it's self-regulating largely. And the other thing that they need to do, and I think you've worked on this a little bit, is they need to uh, what is it they need to do? Oh, city elections have to be partisan.
Yeah.
They need to be partisan.
Yeah. Yeah. I've been working on that for a number of years. And it's funny because everybody's like, everything's too partisan already. We don't running a city is not partisan. I'm like, what the heck are you talking about? Yes, it is. First of all, we already have partisan or elections for everything else that we do, right? Judges and Supreme Court judges, all that stuff, governor, lieutenant governor, AG, county commissioners, prosecutor, like everybody except for the city elections, which is where, by the way, the Democrats, it's like their farm system for baseball. They send all their Democrats to the city elections first and then go up from there.
Wrong.
But yeah, how you pick up the trash, Greg, doesn't matter what bull crap, because the city of Sandpoint, go look. I can't remember. This was a couple of years ago. The city of Sandpoint, which is very liberal, by the way, spent somewhere in the range of $200,000 to $400,000 per trash can for a trash can that was solar powered and it compacted, and then it sent the signal that, dude, hundreds of thousands of dollars for stupid trash cans. Like, it was freaking insane.
Well, and now the city of Boise is taking action on climate change.
Yeah.
I'm dead serious. The city of Boise, which has, I think, within city borders, there are like 300,000 people. In the metro area, it's like 800,000.
Yeah.
She's spending hundreds of thousands of dollars to educate and work on climate change issues. In Idaho, our emissions are next to nothing.
Right.
Nothing.
Yeah.
And she thinks we're going to spend, a few pennies here and change the weather. Come on.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
If I'm a Republican, by the way, in the legislature, I find a way to clamp down on that. Like, no climate change incubators, no spending on anything. Like if cities were what you said they were, which is you collect the trash, you have police, you have fire, you have zoning, which I don't even love, but okay, sure, that's it. Cool, like that'd be great. But it's way more than that. Don't pretend it's not.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to sit and claim I know everything about Masterson. This is not a good sign that he caved that easily, especially for something that was so menial in terms of tweeting language. I've seen some other stuff that would be far more egregious, if you want to say that. But to me, like, if you want to help the guy or if you want to help somebody beat McLean, I mean, you can. But if you really want to put your money behind other things, there's things coming down the pike that'll be much better to spend your money on.
Really?
Or other candidates next year that helping good candidates like Tammy Nichols and others when they're that's far more important than this Hail Mary, if it's even that, of trying to oust McLean. I don't see it happening.
I think maybe I'll have some fun and I will I'll donate $1 to Masterson and see what happens.
Oh, that's kind of that. Hey, that's not a bad idea. That'd be kind of funny.
Because and I would tweet about it just to rub it in their faces and just have some fun. But he would return that in about 10 seconds. So
yeah, probably.
And that's a problem, because here's the thing. It could have been so easy to have just a drop of courage. Ryan supports traditional values. Great. I am a mayor of the city of Boise. That means everybody, people who are progressive, people who are Republican, who are traditional, whatever. It wouldn't have been that hard to have just an ounce of courage, and he chose not to. So, before we go, this is the most insane thing. Did you see the Statesman story about Jim Risch today?
No, I saw that you had tweeted about it, but I didn't actually see what it was about.
Look, I can't believe that I'm agreeing with Steve Birch, a radical Democrat from District 15, the most ornery guy in the world. So there was some bill, I don't know what bill, I just read it very, very quickly, but there was a bill that had to do with like flight paths or something, and Risch put in this bill that flights could not go over an area of Boise where his ranch or his house is. Like, he put that in a piece of federal legislation to route flights away from his property. I was like, what the hell are you doing? Like, Risch has never been conservative.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious. He pulled the bill, or he pulled the rider after he got caught. He got his hand caught in the cookie jar, and he got caught and pulled it. I'm dead serious. That is the most swamp-like behavior I've ever seen in my life.
That's
and
disgusting.
The arrogance. You are going to. Here's the thing. I don't even know if it like makes flights, a couple seconds longer or whatever. But the arrogance to think that you get to have this special privilege where you reroute people because you don't like seeing planes over your property. Move the hell out of that area, Jim.
Wow, dude, that's the kind of stuff that, to me, during the next election, you're gone.
Yeah.
Like, you're that arrogant. You think you're that important. That one thing should cost you your election. Just like I thought that COVID should have cost little, but Republicans will be like, oh, well, Jim Risch is friends with Butch Otter, and Butch Otter has a cowboy hat. So clearly Jim Risch is Republican, right? It's just the same stupid song and dance every single election cycle.
The other thing, like, okay, he got caught. He got caught on this. What is he not getting caught on? And that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like, do you think this is a minor issue? And maybe it is. It's not, but it could be seen that way. What's he hiding that reporters of the Statesman, because there are like 3 of them and they're all like trans, I think. What are they not finding because they're worried about $100 donations to Mike Masterson, right? Like,
right.
I'm sure that there's a lot of other crony crap that he's done that nobody knows about because there's just not the reporter corps that there was, and they're not any good.
Was there anything from Risch's camp?
I honestly didn't look. I just read it. I read a very small snippet.
That, like, what the response was. What's your justification? It'll be something stupid like, well, my cow farts are going up in the sky, and I was worried about the safety of the passengers on the plane. And so if they fly around the cow farts, then we're good to go, And so, I don't know. I don't know what your defense is for that, but that's insane.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it was. I'm sure it was completely dishonest, but I haven't read it yet. But it was really disappointing. Like, I am sure somewhere, because they all do this, that somewhere out there is a quote of Jim Risch saying, "I love public servants, and I don't do this for the power or the prestige. I do it because I am a servant of the people."
Yeah.
Are you now? It's time for you to go home, Jim. Let Russ have his time or something, like, or anybody else. You're not a servant of the people. You serve yourself. And I can't believe I finally found something to agree with Steve Birch on. Cool. See, I'm bipartisan, tripartisan, because I'm libertarian.
Yeah.
Okay.
Man.
All
right. Well,
before we let you go, next week, Lucas Kaler, I think that's his name. Lucas Kaler is running against. I can't. Sarah Cheney. Sarah, if you want to come on and blast me and call me a liar to my face, like, I would love to have you come and defend your candidacy. But Lucas Kaler, it would be amazing. He's running for House in District 11. Chris Allgood is not running again, so Lucas Kaler is what I think is the conservative guy there versus Sarah Cheney, who is not conservative in any way, shape, or form. And he's going to be on the show with us. In a couple weeks, we're going to have a slightly different thing. A friend of mine, I think you know her, Marcy Clark, just got hired by the Libertas Institute out of Utah to do work on children's entrepreneur markets. You've seen these little pop-up markets all across the country, teaching kids how to be entrepreneurs. Well, she's going to start working on that here in Idaho. She's going to be on the show briefly to talk about it. We're also going to have Doug Toomer in a couple weeks talk about his new Stand Up for Idaho event. He's doing Dinesh D'Souza here in Idaho after his new film, like the first appearance after his new film about the weaponization of law enforcement. He's coming to Idaho. So Doug is going to be on, I think, next week or the week after that to talk about that. We've got some amazing shows coming for you guys. This is fun. I love doing it. Any final thoughts, Greg?
Yeah. So by the way, next week you will probably be solo because I'm going to be Saturday. If you're not aware, I am heading to North Idaho. We got our North Idaho tour for the guns. You can go to
For the
Idaho
guns.
Gun Rallies for the guns, baby. Go to idahogunrallies.com and then you can kind of see which dates and where we're going to be at. And I'll be gone for quite a while, including next Thursday. So you will be solo then. But yeah, so it'll be good.
Yeah. Man, how are those gun rallies going?
Good. It's been, it's interesting. You would think that I think people would be more awake. And I don't know if it's just because it's it's not an election year and people are tired and they're exhausted, but we're kind of having to get people reinvigorated at these things going, hey, it's time to wake up. There's a lot going on, not just with guns, but with a lot of stuff that's happening. And interestingly, down here in the far southern Idaho, we've ended up with a lot more native Idahoans coming. A lot of times, when we do it in the Boise area, we end up with a lot of political refugees, right?
Yeah, the transplants. Yeah.
All the transplants, and they're all ready to go and fighting. And a lot of the rallies down here, we've been talking to native Idahoans who are like, what's the Idaho Freedom Foundation? Who are you guys? What's going on in our state? And I'm like, what is happening?
What the hell's wrong with these people?
But it's good. I mean, at least they're at the rally so we can educate them. But I thought, man, this is not good. This is not good. All the native Idahoans are asleep at the wheel thinking it's Idaho and everything's fine when Luke Mayville and all the other liberals are at the door just pounding away trying to destroy the state. So yeah, anyway, that's my final thoughts.
And we have hinted throughout the show. I'm not gonna tell all the details. And Greg's clenching right now, worrying what I'm about to say. But Greg and I have a new project. We can't unveil everything or much right now, but it's time. And I think there's been a lot of progress in this area, but it's time for conservatives to be way more organized and disciplined than they are, and to fight ranked choice voting and to fight a couple other things. So we've got another project in the works. We're hopefully we'll be able to unveil it in a couple weeks.
Yeah.
We've been working really hard on it behind the scenes. It's costing a ton of money, but it's a really good project, and I think you guys are going to like it. I can't wait till we can talk about it. Yeah, we should have it ready by. You said the gun rally. We should have it ready by the gun rally. So
yeah, a month from now is the gun rally. So hopefully a few weeks before then we'll be able to announce everything. So it'll be good.
But if you are interested, if you want to help fight ranked choice voting with us, we'd love to have you on the team teaching it people. If you want to down the road, if you want to have a meeting in your house or in your community or at your central committee meeting, reach out, drop a comment, because we're going on offense and we're not going to stop until Luke and his friends leave the state in a U-Haul that we have paid for
and helped pack
and helped pack.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right. Well, this was episode 17 of Freedom Bros. Let's play that wonderful, wonderful stinger, and we will get you all out of here. All right.
Peace.
Peace, guys.